Okay, well, welcome everybody to the penultimate session here in the plenary hall. I'm here with Claire Behar, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Stor Energy. And, you know, I've always thought that, you know, political prisoners were sent to the salt mines. But Claire is going to tell us that there's something else you can put in a salt cavern, and that is green hydrogen. So, Claire, tell us who is Stor Energy and where does it fit into the green hydrogen economy?
Thank you. Thank you, Malcolm, and thank you to the GH2 organization for phenomenal past 2 days. And I know we're closing out the sessions, and so I'll try to keep as much energy, keep everyone awake. Maybe you and I can do a little swing dance at the end, like last night.
Yeah, well, yes, don't get ahead of yourself. Well, you could do it, but
I'll twirl
anyway,
you around. You could do a dip.
Right, right, okay.
But hello, everyone. My name is Claire Behar, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Stor Energy. We are a renewable hydrogen and hydrogen storage company. And last year, we announced our first project in the United States, the Mississippi Clean Hydrogen Hub, which couples on-site renewable hydrogen production with underground salt cavern storage for long-duration, large-scale hydrogen storage. We are putting the pieces together to produce, store, and deliver zero-carbon hydrogen. And we come from energy backgrounds. We understand the critical importance that storage and long duration storage will play in our future energy system. And as we transition off of fossil fuels to renewables, which are intermittent, we're going to need green hydrogen and hydrogen in salt caverns for that large scale, long duration storage of renewables.
So tell us about the salt caverns. How big are they? How deep are they? I assume they're gas tight, obviously, otherwise the gas would leak out.
Yes, yes. And so these salt caverns are massive. They are, you know, over 300 meters below the Earth's surface with a very small above ground footprint. And for a picture, you know, these are about the size of the Eiffel Tower. And one cavern has the capability of storing 4,000 tons of hydrogen. And our first phase in Mississippi has the capability of storing 70,000 tons of hydrogen in its first phase. And so what most people don't know also is salt cavern storage of hydrogen has been around for over 60 years. And in fact, the first facility was developed in the UK in the 1970s, only 11 years after the first natural gas cavern. And since then, 3 additional facilities have been developed, all in the US and in Texas specifically. The only difference is they currently store gray hydrogen. So the technology is there, the know-how and expertise to both develop and operate these salt caverns is known. So now we just need to take it to zero carbon and take it to scale.
So you said your Stor is going to make the green hydrogen at the same place the caverns, where the caverns are. How are you making it?
So we are in the United States, and specifically in our sites in Mississippi, plentiful land. So we have over 50,000 acres under our control. We'll be developing solar paired with electrolysis. And, you know, the beauty of our location is salt caverns require a specific geology that are only found in specific geographies across the world and the US Gulf Coast, and specifically Mississippi is one of these locations. And so we are developing purpose-built caverns for the storage of 100% renewable hydrogen.
Now, natural gas, methane, has been stored in caverns for a long time. Are the natural gas caverns any different to the hydrogen caverns?
So they're developed in a similar way. It's called solution mining. And so essentially, in simple terms, we drill a well and inject water and nitrogen solution this into the salt rock. This creates a brine solution, We then take this brine solution and pump it back out through a well into a disposal well. And this leaves a hollow cavity, which is very tight, and then will be stored with hydrogen. And salt caverns are highly flexible in that you have the ability to serve both the short duration, so hourly, daily markets, as well as the long duration. So that multi-day, multi-week, seasonal energy storage, which is critical for us to transition off of fossil fuels to renewables, which are intermittent in a reliable and safe fashion, bridging that gap for when we all know the expression, the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, and renewables and batteries can really only get us so far. And salt cavern storage and green hydrogen is the only commercially available technology today for this seasonal storage, which is going to be critical.
Yeah, or very long duration pumped storage. Yeah, but
Correct.
again, I mean, it's when you consider the scale of the challenge we've got with global warming, we have to really take an all of the above approach to the options. So, would you envisage the green hydrogen that you're storing in your salt caverns? Would you envisage that? Do you intend to burn that in a gas turbine to generate electricity when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing, or do you see your business as being the manufacture of green hydrogen, which you then sell to people who need it?
No, I'm very glad that you asked this question, because as we know, hydrogen is such a versatile fuel that it has the ability to decarbonize across a multitude of different sectors. But I think when we all agree that our future energy system is going to be a portfolio of different technologies, some which are not even yet available today. But I think it's so important that we stay focused with green hydrogen and focus on those areas where green hydrogen is the only zero carbon solution. So first and foremost is the seasonal energy storage.
Right.
That critical long duration where, batteries, when we speak about long duration for batteries technology, they're talking 8-10 hours. Well, that's not long duration. We need multiple days, multiple weeks, seasonal storage.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. In fact, I don't think there are any batteries that are widely or commercially available that are storing, commercially storing electricity for 8 hours.
Right.
So,
we have the technology today in green hydrogen and salt cavern storage for long duration. And so
sure,
we have that available, that extra expertise and know-how to develop these caverns. So we need to move fast. And I think that's something that's been so energizing over these past 2 days is that, we're no longer talking about the 2050 lens. That's far too far away. We're seeing the devastating impacts of climate change and severe weather today. We need to be making large scale projects happen in the 2020s to make our lens the 2030s. And that's what needs to happen. And that's where we can do so in a safe and reliable way with zero carbon hydrogen in salt cavern storage.
Okay, now, thank you. Now, your project is in Mississippi. Mississippi has a chemicals industry, obviously based on hydrocarbons. Do you see the chemical industry, ammonia industry being among your first customers for your green hydrogen?
So here are these hard to abate sectors that were always, these are the highest emitting sectors, this steel manufacturing, fertilizer, maritime. And these are the sectors that see that hydrogen is the only solution to decarbonize these sectors. And we see the demand there. Yesterday on the steel panel, H2 Green Steel, saying the demand is there for that premium, to pay that premium for that green steel. And as we look at our future energy system, we really do see a scenario where the customer will come to the supply, and the supply is going to be around this hub spoke model with salt cavern storage at its core. A green steel plant needs very large quantities of hydrogen to transition off of natural gas to a zero carbon solution in a non-intermittent fashion. And that's where hydrogen storage has that capability to supply that customer. You can't make that switch unless you have that certainty of supply that's available on a 24/7 basis.
No, that's well, that's for sure. So how, I mean, the creation of these salt caverns as big as, when you say as big as the Eiffel Tower, you mean as tall as the Eiffel Tower?
As tall as the Eiffel Tower,
And-
around the 300 meters in height and 100 meters in width. These are massive
Wow.
and sit far, far below the surface. So far away from the hydrosphere and biosphere, small above ground footprint.
Gosh. And these are ancient salt rock deposits. How deep are they typically, the stratum that the salt rock is composed of?
Over 400 meters below the surface.
But how deep is the salt rock? So there's
You'll have like a 100-meter buffer at top.
Right. Okay.
But as you say, these are only in specific regions. And that's really why we do see the customer coming to co-locate with the supply. And our footprint in Mississippi, we've outsized our footprint to have the availability for a green steel plant to come, or a green data center that needs those 2 days of backup generation for diesel. They've made these commitments that they need to get off diesel. Well, green hydrogen, the solution is here today.
So when can we expect the first production and storage of the green hydrogen?
So we're breaking ground in construction this year with in service 2025. So that's what needs, it's very refreshing being at this conference this week, to hear that we need large scale projects, but it's important that as we're talking about, we need to scale supply and scale demand. Well, the critical component, which is the infrastructure and the storage, we need to scale storage. And how do you scale storage? You go underground. And, economically, it is the lowest cost solution to store large quantities of hydrogen, 40 times more economical than above tank storage.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and obviously it would be a lot safer too.
That's correct.
Yeah, and people can't see it, so they can't get worried about it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. We wish you all the best for that. It's a great tribute to your company and Laura's, your CEO's ingenuity. I hope that there will be just a whole hydrogen valley. I guess it's more flat country there, I suppose, is it?
We call it a hub spoke.
Yeah,
so
hub spoke.
with our salt caverns at the core.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that is fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that. Now, on the subject of green hydrogen, is Francesco Storacci here yet? No, he's not. Oh, he was going to.
I believe he's going to be coming on virtual.
Is he? Oh, he's coming on virtually, is he? Is that right? He is. All right. Well, why don't can we conjure up, can get the, the magic of television underway, and we'll conjure up 1 minute for him. Okay. Well, that is good. So
maybe I'll, oh, sorry.
No, you go. You fire
No,
away.
I'll say maybe I'll just end on two is something that, I think the greatest value in hydrogen and salt cavern storage of hydrogen is going to be in energy security, energy resilience, food security, price stability.
Sure.
And these are topics that are, top of mind globally. And so the way that we have in the United States a strategic petroleum reserve, we're advocating for having the same for hydrogen. And the salt caverns will be the strategic hydrogen reserve for countries.
Just without, we're not planning to go and start our own salt cavern competitive business, but where are there obviously salt caverns, suitable salt rock in Mississippi? Where else are they widely spread throughout America?
Specific regions. So, you have a lot in Europe, and you have a lot in Saudi Arabia. You have some in South America, Canada.
They have them in Italy, because I know Marco Alvera has said that they store natural gas in caverns
Mhm.
in Italy. So, okay, well that is very encouraging. I mean, I haven't heard about them being a feature in Australia, but they might have been. I'm surprised that you find it so easy to get rid of the brine, to be honest.
You dispose them in disposal wells,
So that
similar
means,
to what we do in natural gas.
so you're just pumping it down into another hole in the ground, into another cavern that you're not using.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, it's
After going through water treatment, it goes through a water treatment
Yeah.
plant, and but really, it's it's a well-known, well-studied
hmm,
technology that's available today, and that's what's so key for us to not lose focus on, is that we have these technologies today, and what we need to do is scale it and have shovel ready projects to break ground.
hmm. Another question. The reason I ask this is that
Mhm.
we have in Australia and some of our river systems, particularly the Murray River, we have issues with salinity,
Mhm.
and they have pumping plants close to the river that pump the salty groundwater out of the aquifer before it gets into the river.
Mhm.
And the problem then is, what do you do with the brine? And it's typically gone into evaporation ponds, and so then you're left with all this salt, which was then an issue to dispose of. Although then there became a market for the salt, even both commercial,
Mhm.
industrial markets, but also a market where people actually were happy to pay for the salt to put on their food, and probably they shouldn't have, it's unhealthy, but nonetheless it became quite fashionable. So do you see there being a market for the salt that you're fishing out?
Perhaps. Well, and I'm glad that you highlighted too on the water availability. This is a key concern of electrolysis, and we have plentiful water available in Mississippi, and specifically our project, we are looking to use recycled water from one of the facilities that would be putting their water back in. We are taking that water. And so, when we're looking at our project, we're trying to be, as full cycle recyclable in every way possible, utilizing the efficiencies of, recycling. So that's what
Yeah.
we're doing there with the water. And, this is a issue globally of making sure you're picking the right regions that are picking the renewable technology in the right regions. So Mississippi, you have those salt domes that are not yet developed. You
Yeah.
have that available water, and our footprint, has access to the deep water ports. So you heard yesterday with maritime, this is going to be similar to LNG, that it's going to be a global traded market.
Yes.
So access to both deep water ports as well as the Mississippi River corridor up to those Midwest fertilizer plants. And that goes to two, back to energy security, food security, to be able to lock in that price for zero carbon green ammonia. That's something that nations should really be focused on, is to have that stability and that energy security.
I agree. Well, that is very good. Now I'm just noticing that is Francesco here? Oh, is he? All right. Well, we won't have much time to talk to him then. Will he just pop up on the screen? Yeah.
He couldn't get a cab this morning.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you're saying about recycled water. There's most, desalination and most, water purification is done by reverse osmosis, which basically involves, using force to pressure to push water through some membranes that filter out everything except the water molecules. And so in places where wastewater has been treated like that, you actually end up with water that is, purer than the water you get through your tap, your drinking water. But nonetheless, there are often great anxieties about people drinking it, you know, because of its provenance, failing to recognize that anyone that lives on a river is drawing water from that river is drinking recycled wastewater from whoever's upstream. But there's a lot of phobias about it. But we've had quite a bit of experience now in Australia because of droughts with desalination, and in a couple of places where wastewater has been desalinated and cleaned, it's actually been, because it is so pure, because it's in its state straight after the treatment, it's actually not very palatable, and its highest value is actually for industry. And so you can do better with selling it to an industrial customer than, you know, treating it and putting, you know, the minerals, the sufficient mineralization back into it to make it potable. But well, that is fantastic. I think that there's a tendency often with technologies and techniques for people to become champions of one or the other. But I just can't emphasize enough how important I think it is to have a very open mind and recognize there are no silver bullets, and we just have to use all of the above. And where you can make hydrogen and store lots of it for long periods, that's very attractive. Do you see in Mississippi you're moving the hydrogen from your hub by pipelines?
Yep, that's correct. We're looking to pipe all the way down to the ports, as well as speaking with several pipeline companies interested in piping all the way to Northeast markets, to Midwest markets. But I want to go back on a point. You know, everyone in the room, we need to do a great job of championing green hydrogen and make sure that it is green hydrogen that gets the voice. You know, it's we got to go for the gold, and the gold is 100% clean energy. Yeah. And we're going to do that by the zero carbon hydrogen. Yeah. Well, we don't have time to drag our feet. The time is now. The technology is there. So we need to scale it in a reliable and resilient way.
Well, that's exactly why we founded the Green Hydrogen Organization, to be the champion for green hydrogen. Well, you know, because one of the reasons we were worried that we were getting into this sort of murky world of clean hydrogen, a term you sometimes hear, but it always makes me uncomfortable because clean hydrogen reminds me of clean coal, which I've always thought clean coal no one should ever be able to say that without sort of smiling. Smart. Because because I mean, I remember Donald Trump once said, he was giving a speech somewhere and he said, clean coal. I like that, clean coal. That's so beautiful, clean coal. And knowing Trump, that he thought it was beautiful because it was just so cynical. You know, it was sort of wickedly cynical, actually, because as one of the speakers earlier said, there's literally nothing clean about coal, you know. So yes, that's why the standard is so important, because we're just being absolutely unequivocal about what green hydrogen is.
It's about carbon intensity.
Yeah, well,
not the colors.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm just conscious we are going to probably run out of time for Francesco, which would be too bad. But why don't we see if there are some questions? We've got about 7 minutes, sir.
Thank you. So hydrogen has energy density, maybe 1/3 of methane. So if the whole system were to go from methane to hydrogen, to get through the seasons, you'd need 3 times the storage. So I'm just wondering if you have any idea about the capacity for more salt caverns and actually to triple the storage in US, and same question for Europe.
So yes, and that is why we're going to need massive quantities of hydrogen storage. And I do know that many are looking at the technology to convert natural gas caverns currently used for natural gas to the conversion of hydrogen. Unfortunately, there are some obstacles in that. One being when you take out all of the gas, you don't want the integrity of your well to be jeopardized. You don't want your well to cave in. Additionally, as you clean out the well with natural gas, you run into impurity issues. You know, how clean of this natural gas can you get this cavern? And when you're selling a product that is zero carbon, that is your product. So you need to be able to ensure that purity. And that's exactly why we are developing purpose-built caverns. So these are virgin wells that will only be storing 100% zero carbon renewable hydrogen. But yes, this is a technology that's being explored.
Can you sort of pressurize the hydrogen? I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to pressurize it to the point of being liquid, but I mean, can you reduce that density somewhat under pressure in the cavern?
Well, these are a very high pressure, and each dome, you can drill multiple caverns at each dome. So as I said, each cavern is around the size of 4,000, could be as large as 4,000 tons, but you can at each facility drill multiple caverns.
Okay.
And so the expansion is, you know, you really, that's how you scale, is that the expansion potential is huge at these locations.
Exactly. Good. Well, that's good. Now, Francesco is apparently coming on, and we can have 5 minutes with him, and then we'll go on to the.
Good
Francesco,
afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can see you. And
excellent.
In
I can also
Technicolor.
see you.
Good. Well, look, we don't have a lot of time, Francesco, sadly.
Sorry about that. It took me a while.
That's no worries. So can you just tell us briefly, we have about 4 minutes, about Enel, what you're doing and your green hydrogen plans, and what you think Europe needs to do to accelerate the production and use of green hydrogen.
I think Europe needs to find a way to make green hydrogen competitive. Without that, it will remain a good idea and nothing else. So can that happen? I think yes. Can that happen in what time frame? I think we will find out in the next 3-5 years. This is a technology that either moves in that time frame. It not necessarily needs to do everything in 5 years, but typically these technologies show you in the first 3 years if there is a real chance to get there. And when I say that, I mean that we should see electrolyzers investment cost go down 50% in the next couple of years, and then that will show us that they can get to where we want them to be. So today, our job and our main effort is to engage in some projects that will push the boundaries of technology in order to encourage innovation and industrialization in this field. We need scale, but we need also completely new ways of thinking in an industry, the one of the electrolyzers, that has been a nice niche where cost was never really a problem, but purity of hydrogen. So it's a completely different story now. It's like, if I can say, when the first PV panels were put on satellites in the 60s and 70s, I mean, what was the cost of that stuff? No one really knew. Okay, it was completely out of proportion, but it was the only thing we had. So then when the industry took over and decided that this had to become a competitive process, we saw the results. This is a completely different technological field. It's chemistry mostly, but it can happen. I am convinced of that. So today, our effort is fully dedicated to make electrolyzers competitive. Can that happen with scale? Big question. You know, sometimes competitiveness comes with larger and larger and larger plants. Can it happen with modular replication into a big factory that produces hundreds of thousands of them? God knows. But if we find it, then you will see that then the business will boom. There is definitely a demand. There is definitely a business case. But it hinges upon the fact that we must be competitive with present hydrogen costs. And you know, hydrogen is a very precious molecule because it is difficult to maintain in its status in nature. So you have to respect that rarity and make sure that the value of the molecule is put to work where best is valued. So it's mostly chemical applications, it's mostly production of fertilizers, ammonia, all chemical stuff that needs the molecule. Then spend a lot of energy to produce hydrogen and then burn it to cook your meal is crazy. I mean, this is not going to happen. But all these discussions are pointless if we don't find a competitive way of producing green hydrogen. And that's our effort today.
So you think hydrogen, green hydrogen, will be too valuable to use for thermal heat?
Well, you know, in order to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, you need to spend 50 kilowatt hours of green electricity. If you put 50 kilowatt hours in an electric car, it drives you 220 kilometers.
Mm.
If you use that kilogram on a hydrogen car, it drives you 90 kilometers.
Right.
Right? So if you use that electricity to cook, you can cook a lot of stuff. If you put that same kilogram of hydrogen into a hydrogen cooking system, you cook a lot less. Like you cook like 30% less. So the waste is huge.
So Francesco, you would say, and I mean, your company, of course, is an electricity company, but you would say that the people in the gas business who say, oh, well, we will pipe green hydrogen around in the gas networks we currently use for methane, that they're mistaken and that really we should be moving to electricity for our sources of heating, heat pumps in houses, electric cooktops and so forth.
You know, I'm totally neutral. I mean, technologies are not good or bad. They're just
Oh, no, I agree.
More or less useful or say energetically intelligent. That's all. So I'm just saying, look at the energy content of what you're doing at the end and choose the best way to do that.
Mm.
I'm not worrying now about the fact that pipelines can be retrofitted to move hydrogen molecules around, provided there is a reason for it. It will happen. But I'm not sure that any country will invest billions and billions to do an infrastructure that then proves to be inefficient from an economic standpoint. So, but again, this discussion is really not that important when you look at the fact that the stuff you have to move around is still too expensive to be even conceived. So that needs to be fixed. And in a way, this debate about whether it's good or bad to move hydrogen in pipes or what kind of pipes is a little bit strange, because today you don't have that hydrogen to move around. You have an idea of a hydrogen to move around. So all you need to do is today really focus stuff and people and the brains, not in this pointless debate, but on how to make competitive hydrolyzers. It's all about that.
Well, that's a very good message. Thank you very much indeed, Francesco. I'm sorry we didn't have time to discuss this longer. The background is blurred deliberately, but your message is crystal clear. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and excuse me for this bad delay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ciao, take care.
Ciao. Well, thank you very much, Claire. So we're just going to